What's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Dime. Today, we are previewing the San Antonio Spurs with 3 or 4-time guest, Ty Jager. Ty, welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you for having
Nice
me,
to have
guys,
you
once
on.
again. I always love coming on here.
Always love having you on. I mean, you're one of my favorite guests. You're actually one of my favorite people that I've met on Twitter. We're not going to
Man,
get
I
into
feel
reasons
honored.
why,
I
because
feel honored.
a
I
lot
feel
of it is
honored
not
on that.
sports related, but me and
Thank
you,
you so much.
we'll just leave it at this. Let everybody know where people could follow you, where they can find your work, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm just mainly on Twitter, and then I'm somewhat trying to get threads as we all attempt to do something differently. But at the Ty Jager is where you can find me. Check out my Instagram. I post a lot of photos over there.
There we go. All right, Ty, let's get into it. First, we want to talk about last season. Tell me about year one Wemby. Did he fulfill all your expectations? Give him a grade. What did you think?
Wemby, for a guy that was entering the league that had no idea what he was doing, according to the summer league quotes that he made,
Yeah.
I think he exceeded expectations. This kid is different. I think everyone is fully well aware of how different he is, what this guy can do, and yeah, he exceeded expectations. He met expectations and then exceeded them even more. So, especially who becomes defensive player of the year as a rookie?
Yeah. He might win the next 14. Like, I'm serious. He was robbed last year, but he might win the next 14, 15 defensive players of the year.
Yeah,
I
he
can't
is.
imagine a player being better than him defensively.
Yeah, no, it's the way that his length is. It's you can't match it. You don't know. Yeah, honestly, all you see of this all the time. You see the guys that go to the room and they say, "Hell nah, I'm passing it out. I'm not even dealing with this. Not even attempting it." We've seen it already the preseason so far of guys like Paulo going to the basket and not even attempting anything because they're scared of this man's length. They know that he can and will block you.
Yeah.
So just the fear factor of him defensively, that puts him at a whole different level from anyone else.
Does it feel like the team kind of sacrificed wins sometimes across the season, like doing stuff where you were like, "Yo, why is this still going on?" For example, not playing Trey Jones as point guard, and just certain things that kept happening.
Yeah, no, this was certainly a season. While I like to go being called an experimental season, this was a season that the team was just trying to kind of understand what they have. Not only just Victor, because I think that's a whole experiment that they had to find out for themselves. Because I don't think they've ever played with a guy that's 7'4" with his length, with his abilities. They've never played with a teammate like that. So how do you play with someone like that if you never played it with them before? So it certainly was an experimental season, not just for the front office, but players as well, just trying to understand how they're going to play around this guy in the first place. And then also it's just kind of for the team itself, trying to gauge where their players are at, where their young guys are. Have an experiment like Jeremy Sohan try to run at point guard. You're just trying to find out what he has. Because if you want him to be a Draymond Green like player, you kind of need to run at point just to see, can he actually do this stuff that he needs? And obviously he struggled. It was very much outside of his game. And this season, you're hopefully going to see Jeremy Sohan kind of slip more into what he's good for and what he was exceptional at Baylor for. But overall, there were wins definitely being sacrificed. But also, where was this team exactly going to go at that time? Because obviously the players are not good. Honestly, as a Spurs fan, I had a lot of optimism for this team going into it, but that shut the door on me personally. But and so yeah, it was a hard season to watch. But overall, I think it was a season that's going to help this team in the future, and they obviously made some adjustments going to last off season and into this season. And I think that they figured out what they need to improve on, and they're just going to keep going forward with it.
All right, now you just mentioned the offseason. They acquire Chris Paul. What's the end game here? Because obviously Chris is in the later stages of his career. I think, the question that I hear all the time in Spurs media is or the narratives, he's going to help Wemby so much, which is true. We don't need to hear that he's going to do that. I'm more interested in well, what's the end game here? I mean, he's going to play point guard for the next 1 or 2 years. You're not developing anybody. What's the plan? At the end of the day, what do you what's the end goal?
And I actually disagree that I think with having Chris Paul there, you're going to be developing guys. This is a guy that was voted most likely to become a coach from the NBA GM survey that was placed right before the preseason start. Yeah, Chris Paul is one of the smartest basketball minds there is in the game right now, and we all know that he's probably going to become a coach after the fact. So, by having him out there as more of a steady presence, giving these guys the ability to learn different ways and have someone brought this up. I forgot who was the person that brought it, but they said that Chris Paul brings more of a player's view and perspective compared to what a coach can provide. And that has been extremely helpful for some of these guys already early on.
Yeah.
So, but I think well, yes, this is only going to be probably a 1-2 year experiment. Look at how other teams fared having Chris Paul on their team. Look at OKC specifically. They only had him for a single season, and suddenly they're about to be one of the favorites in the West this season. And I don't think that happens without having Chris Paul there just to help develop guys and help teach them some right things early on in their career. And I think that's going to be a very key thing of why Chris Paul isn't in San Antonio. It's not exactly just for encore play. He's doing a lot more behind the scenes that we're not going to see as fans of the team or the NBA as a whole. But I think just having that steady presence that he provides to the court, the composure, and then also that basketball IQ, I think that's going to help this team in the long run. Even if it's Wemby, if it is a guard like Stephen Castle, or even a wings guy players, I think overall just his presence should help this team develop a lot further.
Speaking about the encore play with Chris Paul, I know they've played a couple of preseason games with Wemby and Chris Paul. Have you seen anything? I know it's preseason, it's like early, but have you seen anything so far that like has given you optimism going into the season?
So far, having the Spurs needed a point guard. I think that was proven last year. And I think it's also kind of been proven across the league from teams that do struggle that don't have a point guard, aka look at Phoenix.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
But last season proved that the Spurs desperately need a point guard that has experience and knows what he's doing on the floor. And that's why Trey Jones eventually did end up starting. But now you have a 1-2 punch in terms of your point guards with Chris Paul, and then a very steady presence of Trey Jones coming off the bench. And the Spurs learned that they need someone out there. And so far, is looked so much better compared to last season. It looks much more composed. These guys definitely have been better at finding each other, getting looks, with a lot more better passing. And Chris Paul has just kind of been at the helm of all of this. So far, just steady presence is what I've seen the most out of it. And then we all saw that one lob from Chris Paul. That's just the start. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And once we see these guys actually get full games together, because so far they've not really played full games, being preseason and all. But once you get full seasons, the full season and full games into this, I think you're going to see a lot of chemistry between specifically Chris Paul and Wemby, especially in the pick and roll.
Yeah, and I guess, to your point about Chris Paul, saying how he can be a leader off the court and how he can help, young players develop. You can say the same about Harrison Barnes, right? I mean, he's won a championship. He was a vital part of the first Golden State Warriors championship team. And he plays a different position. So maybe like the tweeners, like the small forwards, power forwards, Harrison can help out with. Do you think that's the reason why they acquired him as well? And my second question is, does he get minutes? Is he in the rotation like consistently?
Yeah, I think that's exactly why Harrison Barnes was brought in. Pop has praised Harrison Barnes since 2019 World Cup and where Barnes was on the roster.
Yeah.
And he's always has had high praise for Harrison Barnes. So having another veteran presence, a guy that understands his role and just can teach those other younger wings, where Chris Paul, like you mentioned, he might be focused on the guards and Wemby specifically, while Harrison Barnes gets a focus on guys like Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Julian Champagnie, these guys that definitely could use that wing experience to help further their own game. So yeah, I definitely think that's why Harrison Barnes is in San Antonio, and he's going to be starting. We've already seen him as starter in the preseason, and Harrison Barnes has been a career-long starter. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon unless he gets dealt, which I'm not sure that's going to happen, because this team, again, more lessons from last season. They learned that they definitely need veteran presence, especially with a team filled with young guys, because this is still the second youngest team in the league.
The other big move you guys made was you drafted Castle. What were your impressions of him summer league and now early on in preseason?
So just going into the draft process, I was impressed by Castle mainly because I love seeing really high-level defenders coming out of college. We've seen guys that come out of college as good defenders. They tend to be good NBA players. These guys are more NBA ready and can really handle a lot. Looking at Cason Wallace last year, he was one of the best defenders in that draft, and I really thought he would be a good pairing with Wemby. So yeah, it's not Cason Wallace, but Castle is definitely on his own level, and he is such a good defender, and I think that's going to play a key part to why he's going to get minutes in the second unit. But so far, he's a strong player. He definitely has a strength to match up against NBA level players. I think that's why he exceeded so well at UConn, with that he was able to outstrength a lot of these guys that were around his age, but definitely were not at the same physicality as him. And he plays at his own pace. You see that he doesn't rush. You see a lot of young guys in the league, especially point guards, they kind of rush with the ball, and they try to match the pace of play that the NBA can be at, which is very high at times. But he just slows down and does it at his own pace. He does not rush anything. You see him dribble and take his time, and the maturity that he brings just at his, he's supposed to be a sophomore in college, and he is very mature. And I think that's a big reason the Spurs were high on picking him. But hard-nosed defender. And then I also add on that he's suddenly drawing a lot of fouls. I don't know where this came out of, but he's using his strength going into the basket and just drawing fouls with using through contact. He's not afraid of it. We've seen some guards who were afraid of contact, and that's what limited them. Steven Castle is not going to have that issue in the NBA.
All right, so now just in the offseason, we're going to the 2024-2025 season. Going back to Wemby, because everything starts with Wemby with this team. What's the one thing you would like to see him improve on? Obviously, he's still young. He's not a perfect player. But if there's like one thing you want to see him take a leap on this year, what would that be?
I think it's a combo of two things that go hand in hand. It's decision making and shot selection. I think he really needs to improve upon that, and I think that comes with experience playing in the NBA. He can certainly put up some dumb shots at times, tried to take risks, and I think that partially that part of that was that he felt like he had to carry the team in a way, and a lot of pressure was put on him to be a scorer. If he's able to just improve his shot selection, not take as many fadeaway middies, even though he's extremely good at them. As long as he can just clean up his shot selection and improve his decision making, I think that will do him tenfold. And I think we all expect him to improve upon that. This is just the case for younger players. The kid's only 19. The kid's still 20.
It's insane.
He's only 20, and he is already ESPN.
Insane.
As much as I disagree with the rankings, he's ranked 11 already.
Yeah.
But so just the decision making needs to improve, and he's going to be fine. Let's just say that. I am not worried about Wemby at all, and that is such a minor thing that comes with experience. So I'm overall decision and shot making just need to be better.
This is a silly question, and but last year, were you surprised how many times like players couldn't like find him when he was open?
That's a valid question.
I think it's very much a valid.
That's why Chris Paul's here, Kwab. That's why Chris Paul is on the.
Me and Josh would be watching games, and we were like, okay, he just spun off the block. He's 7'12". Throw him the ball, please. Like, why are we? But I know it's just a silly question, but were you surprised at like that inconsistency that happened during the course of the year?
Yeah, I think it was surprising at first, but you also have to put yourself in the mind of these guys that, like I said earlier, these guys have never played with a guy like Wemby. And so I don't think they knew how to properly set him up, where his spots were. And so as the season progressed, you saw them get very much better at feeding him and finding him in better spots. But now you add in a guy like Chris Paul, who is a master at finding the big man. He's just going to help them improve even further in terms of knowing where to throw the spots. Chris Paul specifically is going to, overall, I think Chris Paul is going to help create the perfect prototype point guard to be next to Wemby in these next year or two, possibly. But having him out there is going to help these guys find Wemby in better spots. But it's not, as I look at other things, as I look at the beginning of last season, and I look at even how the French national team was playing with Wemby, it shouldn't be a surprise that all these guys struggle to find Vic, because, again, they never played with a guy like him. Yeah. And it's going to take some time to learn that. And so was it surprising at the beginning of the season? Yes. And in retrospect, it's not as surprising as it was.
From what I remembered, and correct me if I'm wrong, the beginning of the season, it was almost kind of like, why isn't the team passing him the ball that much? Why isn't the offense running through him? It was kind of frustrating to watch the Spurs just from a casual viewer standpoint, because I was like, I want to see Wemby dominate, man. I want to see this happen.
Yeah, very much.
Now, going into this year, like, are there any offensive sets that you want to see that they didn't do last year? I mean, obviously you get Chris Paul, so that probably means a lot of pick and roll, but is there anything that you want to see Pop adjust to or change?
I think, so I'm not usually an X and O's guy, so I'm going to be a little more surface level, just to let everyone know. But I think that you're going to look at more European ball screen offense with this team. They're going to be screening with each other. They're going to be trying to get a lot more ball movement. And there obviously going to be emphasis on pick and roll with Chris Paul specifically. And you're going to see a lot of things like even inverted pick and rolls. You've seen Wemby screen for Chris Paul already. And once you get guys like Devin Vassell back, he's out until November 1st. And I don't think there's any doubt that he will come back after November 1st from the way that he's talking about his injury ramp up. But you're going to see a lot of pick and rolls with Wemby, either as a screener or the ball handler. And I think that's going to be a key emphasis of what this team is going to try to run with. And also, but this is also Greg Popovich's San Antonio Spurs. This is going to be a team first play style. Everyone is going to be making the extra pass. Ball movement has been vastly improved already from last season, just looking at the preseason.
Mhm.
And I think that's just going to be a huge emphasis of ball movement and just make sure to get Wemby involved or even take advantage of the gravity that he's going to create. Because we all know that these teams are going to be scared S-less from Wemby.
Yeah.
So they're going to be focusing on him. And if you have guys like Julian Champagnie, like Devin Vassell, who can take advantage of having space from defenders trying to collapse on Wemby, that's going to play huge into the Spurs' hands, especially being a ball movement first team.
Are there any specific lineups like you'd like to see Wemby, like the type of player surrounding him? Like, is there like do you have a lineup you envision going into the season?
So, just to give everyone some context of what was looking like, what the starting lineup and the second unit is looking like to go entering the season, it's most likely going to look like a starting lineup of Chris Paul, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Sohan, and Wemby, with a second unit of Trey Jones, Stephon Castle, Julian Champagnie, Keldon Johnson, and Zach Collins, with some rotation pieces like Blake Wesley, Sandro Mamu Kalashvili. Going to say Mamu for the rest of the time. Never saying that last name ever again. Charles Bassey, City Sissoko, and Malachi Branham. But I think that's kind of your 15-man rotation.
Yeah.
But I think the lineups that I'm personally excited about are the very defensive focused lineups. Castle and Blake Wesley together have been very fun defensively, and I can't imagine having Wemby out there along with Jeremy Sohan and then having a guy either Devin Vassell or Harrison Barnes, who still a good defender, might not be the best on the court, but they can still defend well and also bring some offense. Those are going to be some of my favorite lineups I'm looking out for. And then I would love to see the season end with a CP3, Stephen Castle, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, and Victor Wembanyama lineup, because I think that is a lot of fun defensively. Offensively, it has some pieces there, but overall, I'm looking at these defensively focused lineups to have a lot of fun with, because Greg Popovich thrives defensively, and I would love to go back to those 2000 Spurs.
All right, now, assuming he has a clean bill of health, what are your expectations for Devin Vassell? I know you were high on him last year when we had this season preview, so I just want to know if your expectations are still the same.
Yeah, I expect him to continue on from his strong season last year. Last year, he was really good as a scorer. He was shooting some absurd shooting percentage from deep for a good bit, and it kind of did come back down to earth. But he's making tough shots. He was carrying that offense at times, and whenever the Spurs didn't have Devin Vassell, you could definitely tell that his presence was missing. So I expect him to continue that good season and go on that upward trajectory. But he just needs to be a first scoring option outside of Wemby. If he can just maintain that role, the Spurs will be in good luck, because this guy is a true 3-level scoring threat. He can get the mid range where he thrived in college. He's definitely can shoot the 3 ball. And last year, near the end of the season, we saw him get better with driving and getting closer to the rim. So
Yeah.
I would love to see some more inside scoring from him to truly make him that triple threat. But overall, it's just maintain that scoring focus and then just still be good on defensively, especially having better cast around you, better defenders behind you. You're not having to carry the load. But if he can just be that average defender and be exceptional on scoring, perfect. Love it. And I think that he's going to be having a good season if that's the case.
What about Keldon Johnson, especially coming into this year? You've heard a lot of things about, well, you actually see like he looks in great shape, and even though he had a kind of an up and down year, what are your expectations of him this season?
He's definitely coming into the season to prove himself. Yeah, this is his 5th or 6th season already in the league, but there's been a lot of question marks of if he fits with this team or not. Last season, we saw a lot of inconsistencies between his shooting and just being able to defend on an average level. And it got really frustrating at times where this man looked like he had cement brick shoes at times, because he was just not moving with defenders and getting blown by. But now, he, like you said, he does enter this season with a better, clean bill of health. He looks like the best shape that he's been in, according to Pop. And so if he can keep the agility that the extra weight off can help him, along with the shooting, he will be good. But he just needs to be consistent shooting and just show that he can fit on this team, not go straight to the rim like a bull in a china shop with tunnel vision. If he can improve his ball movement and then also consistency, I think he can prove me wrong, and I'm hoping he can. I said last season I would like this guy traded, but if he can impress me, and I want him to prove me wrong, I'll be happy to keep him on this team.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to go into my next question. It seems like you kind of answered it there with Keldon, but I wanted to know if there's anybody on the roster who's like playing for a spot on the Spurs. I mean, it feels like this whole season or maybe the next couple of years is dedicated to seeing, all right, who can play with Wemby? Is there anybody on the team where you're like out on, or where you're just like, this is your last opportunity to do so?
Malachi Branham. He is in the last chance, and the preseason might be his last chance in all honesty.
Wow.
Because on October 31st is the deadline for the Spurs picking up his final fourth-year team option. And so far,
it's his third year? It's his third year?
It's his third year already.
Oh, my God.
Same thing for Blake Wesley and Jeremy Sohan.
That's right. Oh, my God. Oh,
so,
man.
but he is I know time flies.
It does. Yeah.
No, but Malachi Branham is very much he's teetering on the edge. He was barely getting within rotation minutes on some of these last few games, and he just needs to pick it up. Either that be improved shooting consistency, being an average defender, because defensively he is not good. Some of us call it the Iceman, just because he looks like he's frozen on defense.
Oh, man.
Or no, Mr. Freeze.
Not because he's George Gervin.
No, Mr. Freeze. But but he's certainly needs to prove it if he's going to stick around. I don't see a long-term future with him if he's not able to shoot consistently or even provide anything of reason on the defensive side. Because if this team is going to be defensive focused, defensive minded, you have to play defense. And so far, Malachi Branham has not done that. And roster spots are going to be far and few between now. And you have other guys like Blake Wesley, Julian Champagnie. You have a lot of other guys near the bottom of this roster that are looking to earn their own next contracts. And Malachi Branham just has not shown it to me lately. He can prove me wrong, just like Keldon Johnson can easily prove me wrong. But I'm not feeling good about Malachi Branham.
A player we mentioned earlier, I just want to go back with Jeremy Sohan finally, I guess, going to play his more natural position this coming season. What are your expectations of him moving forward?
I think he's gonna have a much better season than last year. I don't think he was mainly the scapegoat for a lot of fans and even fans outside of San Antonio. Because you see this guy that got thrown into this point guard experiment, a position he's never played professionally, and struggle. Obviously, that was expected that he was going to struggle. But I think fans really lashed out on him way too harshly, and not understanding of what this guy can do. And in his rookie season, I was impressed by him. This was a guy that was really good at finishing around the rim, masterful at cutting, and just one of the better defenders on this team. I love the triple threat defensively of Castle, Sohan, and Wemby. That's so much fun to me, and I can't wait for it. And I think everyone is going to see a lot better Jeremy Sohan this season, who's playing, like you said, his more natural role. He's one of the better defenders in the league. He's taken up some of the hardest matchups there can be. And then offensively, he's now going to go slide back into that role of he's just going to finish plays for you. He's going to if there's a loose rebound, he's going to go grab it. He's going to go fight for it, and he will finish it. And also on the cutting abilities, if you have better passers like Chris Paul, Wemby, who's also a very good passer now all of a sudden, and you just have a lot more passing and ball movement, he is going to thrive in that setting because he's going to get away from his defender. He's going to find himself open, and I just think he's going to get some easy points there offensively as long as he's playing within that role that he knows that he's good at.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jeremy a lot. I think a reason why Pop trusted him in the beginning of the season to play point guard is because he's a basketball player. He just has good instincts, and I think he's a long-term option for the Spurs. I hope he's around for a while. I think he'll find his way. Is there anybody who we haven't mentioned, or maybe somebody who would come out of nowhere that you would like the rest of the world or an NBA fan to know about who might surprise people?
Mamu. I want everyone to
Mamu.
Mamu. If you don't know who Sandro Mamu Kalashvili is, I went against my word. If you don't know who Mamu is and you have not watched him, you're missing out. This guy has been so much fun. Pop has called him one of his favorite players out there. And also knowing that his dynamic with Wemby is really good. like they both brought up that they both grew up with European basketball, and having that mindset has actually given them a really good connection between the two. Now, defensively, he's not a game changer. He's definitely going to need to improve on that side of the floor. But offensively, this guy's a stretch big. He's going to do a lot of good things. He's a Boris Diaw type passer as well at times. And
Pop's gonna love that.
he is so much fun, and I really hope that he finds a place into this rotation because he deserves it. He earns it, and I am very impressed with him so far this preseason, especially shooting wise. If he can be a stretch 4, he's going to earn minutes, and he's going to be a key guy within the supporting cast. And then I think another guy that people don't really know too much about is Julian Champagnie.
Yeah.
This guy, he's with the 76ers, got waived. Spurs pick him up just randomly, and he's been good, especially this preseason. I need to find the stats for him real quick that I had. But he's shooting an insane number from deep in the preseason so far. 46.9% on 8 attempts per game in 4 preseason games.
That's no joke. That is decent amount of volume.
And if you also look at it, the dude is making it with no space. Like the defender could have his face and hand in his face, and he's still making it. Julian Champagnie might have a breakout season, and this guy he has the size to be just an average defender at the least, where he will be serviceable. And then he knows his role. And I think that's a common trope you see with Spurs players are guys that understand their role on the team. They don't try to overplay it. They don't try to play outside of that until they need to be. But Julian Champagnie, he's one of my favorite players right now. And I think he might have a breakout season as a guy that's just going to be a key supporting piece that any team would want to have.
Season prediction for the Spurs. How much do they improve? Any chance at a play-in? I mean, I've seen some takes out there. One of my good friends who's a podcast host, Above the Rim, Just Blaze, he's saying that he thinks that the Spurs are making the playoffs. So I've seen that. I've actually seen that. Where do you see them going realistically?
Okay, so I have two options I can go here. I do have the very high optimistic Homer fan call.
Let me hear it, baby.
Everyone, and then I have the realistic option. But optimistically, you have a dramatic turnaround. Wemby's an MVP level season. 4th or 6th seed. I think that's one of their highest seeds.
The highest. That's a hot take.
True optimist, highest ceiling possible.
Yeah.
You have teams that are you have other teams that are just are not going to be good, that are hurt, and the Spurs take advantage of that. And Wemby is just having an even dramatic, sharp incline.
MVP type season. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, does Wemby end up winning every award apart from Rookie of the Year this coming season?
I think at that point, yes. And outside of six man and rookie.
Yeah.
Overall, I think he wins all the awards if the Spurs have that type of season and just are a top 6 seed regardless. But I think realistically, you do get improvement within this team. Wemby is just going to continue to shine. You will see all around improvement and development across the roster. And I do think that this should be a play-in team. Okay. That if this Spurs team makes those play-in seeds 7 through 10, that's a successful season in my book. And if they make the playoffs, they exceed expectations in that play-in.
There's always a surprise team. Why not Wemby? Why not Wemby's led Spurs? I mean, it's very possible. Chris Paul too. I mean, Chris Paul has been to franchise to franchise, and out of nowhere they've made the playoffs. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Spurs actually end up making the playoffs, even though the West is pretty deep. All right, Ty Jager, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate you. Let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you, anything you want to put out there.
Yeah, just go ahead and follow me on Twitter at the Ty Jager. That's where most of my content is going to be. I'm also on Threads. I'm going to try my best to do it. I have a lot more personal stuff on Instagram if you want to follow me there. And then I'm going to be writing for Forward Access this season, covering the Spurs. It's a smaller website. I've done some entertainment news for them before, but that's where I'm going to be doing a lot of writing kind of sporadically this season. But I'm really excited. This is going to be a very fun season, having Chris Paul, a second year of Wemby, and I'm just very excited to see what this young team can do, because I think there is potential, and the ceiling for them is higher than I think most people are expecting.
All right, Ty Jager, everybody. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you. If you want to follow The Dime, you can follow it on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at The Dime NBA. I'm Josh Rodriguez at Josh_Rodriguez_. He's Kwab at Kwab AKS. We'll see you next time for another episode of Dime.